Hi, I'm Alan, editor of Prospect Magazine, and you're about to watch the interview portion of the latest episode of Media Confidential with myself and Lionel Barber, in which we speak to a special guest. If you want to watch the full episode, please click on the link below, and if you want to subscribe to Prospect Magazine, please visit our website at www.prospectmagazine.co.uk. Enjoy. So we're so pleased now to be joined by Justine Roberts, who 25 years ago had the brilliant idea of founding a website called Mumsnet. And Justine, all was going well until recently you discovered something that Google was going up to, and you described your astonishment in a piece in The Guardian. Tell us what you discovered.
Well, actually, it was OpenAI we discovered were scraping a website a few months ago. But the shock and horror I had was when I discovered that Google's head of UK was arguing that we should change our copyright laws here in the UK to basically allow Google and the other big tech giants to freely scrape data from the internet and use it for whatever they wanted to use it for, which is really to build their models, their large language models.
Just pause there, so that for the people, I mean, our listeners are very tech savvy, of course, but there'll be one or two who do not understand the concept of scraping. So, what does scraping mean, and how does this help these AI companies?
So, what they're doing is hoovering up all the content on the internet in order to train their large language models. So if you've used ChatGPT, it's been built it's predicting an outcome based on all the conversational data and all the content that it's ingested into the model. And that content has come from the internet. So when you go and scrape a website, you're effectively lifting all that content off that website.
In order to train your own robotic models, if I can put it in.
Exactly, and also to verify their output as well. So they've now, in my view, they've already hoovered up all the content on the internet. And now what they're interested in is refinement, really, more than actual training, to make sure they give good answers.
And I think in your case, you said that over 25 years, you've already generated something like 6 billion words. Is that right?
That's right. 6 billion, not quite 25, actually. You've slightly aged me, Alan. 24 and a bit. That will be 25.
Just going by your own article. I should have fact-checked your own article.
Anyway. Well, that's that must have been the Guardian subs.
Dre sub-editor.
Playing the subs, always playing the subs. So you've generated 6 billion words in your 24 and a half years. And so along they come and say, we want to change the copyright laws so we can basically have all that. Now, why is this more of a threat than Google doing this already?
Yeah, you rightly point out that Google do scrape most websites already, and then they use the results in their search engine. But what that brings websites like mine is search traffic. So they're, if you like, indexing and sorting that data. But there is a clear value exchange to publishers, because if they let Google scrape their data, what they're getting back is users for their websites. Unfortunately, with the AI models, that's not happening. What they're doing is ingesting the data, spitting out their own answers, and in many cases will be replacing the content that people would have previously gone to these other websites for. So there's no value exchange, effectively. They want to not pay for the content, and they don't want to send any traffic to, or give any fair attribution for the content that they're ingesting. So there's literally nothing in it for publishers.
Oh, Justin, let me just jump in here, because your timing is exquisite. Because right now, ChatGPT's owner, a controller, OpenAI, that's run by Sam Altman, is raising yet another funding round, probably more than $10 billion. Its valuation is more than $150 billion. So my question is, why did they give you the brush off when you said, why can't we have a licensing agreement for our brilliant content at Mumsnet?
Yeah. So good point. I mean, we noticed they were scraping our data and large amounts of our data because we looked at the back end and could see their little crawlers going all over our website. So we reached out to them and asked them, would they like to license that data? And we entered into talks and signed quite a few NDAs about what information
Non-disclosure agreements, yeah.
Yeah. And after a period of time, they came back to us and said, we did establish whether they would be interested in a corpus of data like Mumsnet, so of its scale and of its type. And it is quite unique because it's dominated by female voices, Mumsnet. So it's kind of 98% written by women. And they were certainly interested and said, yes, it's of sufficient size and interest to us. We're just going to go away and have a closer look at what you've got. And they came back to us and said that it wasn't of sufficient scale, but more importantly, they were interested in less open sources of data.
Yeah, what's that mean?
Well, I took it to mean they were interested in things that they hadn't already scraped or couldn't scrape freely, i.e. things behind paywalls that were hidden to them, which really pissed me off, to use a technical phrase.
Term, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why we then contacted some lawyers to see where we stood. But a Mumsnet is under some threat from this, but less so than most websites, because people come to Mumsnet not just to simply get answers. They come for human interaction and support and friendship and humor and things like that. But for websites, if you think of a travel website that's spent years building, amazing brand, amazing IP, and amazing content. I don't know if you've tried it yet, but I use ChatGPT to give me a 3-day itinerary to Rome, and it's really quite astounding. It does it in a second, and you can keep interrogating it. Why would anyone go to that website anymore to get that content? They're not going to, and unless they get paid for the stuff they are producing for these models, then they will go out of business. And we'll be left with very few producers, I'm afraid.
So what you're saying, Justine, is that really this is an existential threat to anybody who is creating content.
I do believe it is. And I also, let's bear in mind Lionel's excellent point that these guys, they can afford to pay for it. They're really, this is a blip in the ocean to them. And what I do know is they will throw millions of dollars at legal cases. If we take them on, they will tie us up for years. They will put as much complexity into it as they can, because that is their playbook to try and just avoid this issue. And
these are very early days. I mean, this is like the change from the horse and cart to the motor car. How is evaluation going to be reached? So how did you get as far as putting a figure on what you wanted, or how do you value what your 6 billion words are worth to a company like OpenAI?
I mean, that is a very good question. I mean, I think there are examples of some deals they've done. So they have done some deals with the larger publishers.
Like Financial Times has come on board, Axel Springer of Germany. But as Just is saying, the terms of these deals have not been revealed, or what. So we don't know what the Financial Times thinks its words are worth.
No, but Reddit have revealed slightly more, because they did a bit of fundraising of their own, an IPO. So we know a bit more. And I've heard various things about what the going rate is. And there are various platforms now where you can advertise your data and suggest a rate. So there are some indications. I mean, the middle ground that I've heard is about $0.01 a word.
$0.01 a word.
Yeah.
Is it in perpetuity or per annum?
Well, it would have to be in per annum, because once they've ingested your data, there's no getting it back. And I think we have to understand that this has to be a payment that continues for as long as the data is in the model, and the data is never coming out of the model.
Now, you're familiar with the term, Alan. When I talk, here's my 5 cents worth. And usually you get more than 5 words. But there we are. But seriously, I just want to come back to how long did you talk to OpenAI? Was it 3 months, 3 weeks, or what?
It was about 6 weeks.
And were you dealing with very senior people?
I felt we were dealing with the people who certainly the people who were in charge of doing these deals.
Because they've had a lot of upheaval. That's the other point, just context-wise. You had yet more top engineers walking out, resigning from OpenAI. A lot of criticism of Sam Altman's management style. And there is no question, this is me speaking rather than you, Justine, but they are in a race to raise as much money as possible. They're they need this money, not just to pay publishers, but also to pay for the extraordinary energy needs for this high-grade computing to do the large language model training. But I was very interested that they kind of, I won't say strung you along, I wouldn't say that, but they engage and then suddenly disengage.
Yeah. I really hope they feel they need the money to pay publishers. And then my sort of irritation at the Google CEO's remarks was that they seem to be trying to avoid that. Because the laws in the US, actually, by the way, are much less favorable to publishers. You'll know this because fair use allows the text and data mining for commercial purposes in the US. Whereas in the UK, we have fair dealing where you're not allowed to text and data mine and breach copyright for commercial purposes. That's the law they're trying to get changed. And I do worry about this government being a little bit informed about this and being a little bit in the pockets of big tech. Because
do tell more, Justine.
Well, they are, I think slightly persuaded by this idea, which was the argument being made by the Google CEO, that if the UK is going to compete in this new AI world, we need to relax all the laws on copyright to allow the UK to be a player. And we're going to get all this growth from AI. And let me make it clear, I'm a big fan of AI. I think it has amazing potential to do amazing good. But I don't see that these big tech companies should be allowed to walk untrammeled over everyone's rights.
But just to be very clear here, are you talking about the Google CEO, Sundar Pichai, or are you talking about the head of Matt Britton, who is head of Britain and Europe?
Well, I'm actually talking about neither, but I'm talking about Debbie Weinstein, who is Google's UK managing director.
Right. Not at the same level, but there we are.
But Mustafa Suleiman, who is, Microsoft
now, yeah,
has openly said that he believes all web content is free for all, should be allowed for ingestion in the models for the benefit of humankind.
Worth pointing out, Mustafa Suleiman, best-selling author of The Coming Wave on AI and former co-head at DeepMind, which was bought by Google, that is probably one of the very best British tech companies developing AI, was bought 10 years ago only for 500 million, cheap at the price.
Was cheap, and that book is quite scary in the potential pitfalls of AI.
Justine, I was going to describe you as a minnow, but that would be untrue. Prospect is a minnow. We have a mere 28 million words that we would be keen to license to someone. But so we're the true minnow. But nevertheless, compared with the companies that you're about to go to war with, a legal war with, you are a comparative minnow. I guess they're relying on the fact that you haven't got the deep enough pockets to fight them.
I think that is the playbook, yes. I think the playbook, as I understand it, to make the case as long and as complex and as costly as possible.
Are you doing this on your own or in concert with others?
Well, I'm in negotiation with others. I'm not sure it's possible for us to go entirely alone, but I will argue very vociferously that justice shouldn't just be available to those who have deep pockets. I'm prepared to be quite loud and quite annoying, and to lobby anyone I can, because I do think this is a test case that needs to be fought. And I think IP for content creators needs to be protected. And I don't think many people would disagree with that.
We can write you a check for, I don't know, £7.50 to be part of the case, if that would help.
Every little help.
That's a minnow. That's a check from a minnow, if I've heard one, Alan. But what do you think is another way of tackling the problem, rather than just the legal route? I mean, in terms of technology, and I think, Alan, we'll be looking at this in the near future, but there may be some remedies in terms of product which allow publishers to see very, very clearly what's being used, and also how, policing a licensing arrangement. Have you looked at that?
Yeah, I have. There is a company that is doing that, Pro Rata, so who are quite close, I think, to a technical solution for this. There's also a number of platforms where, there are middlemen who are talking to both the large language models and publishers, and offering some kind of place for you to sort of negotiate, really. But it all requires, I think, big tech to admit some kind of liability, or admit that they're prepared to pay for the content that they're taking. And at the moment, they seem to be quite reluctant to do that.
Well, Justin, I had a conversation with an old friend in media earlier this week when referring to the Mumsnet case and your fight. And he said, good on Justin, all power to her elbow. And by the way, I've stopped talking about Silicon Valley anymore. I just referred to it as the Barbary Coast, because they're all pirates.
Yeah, amazing. Well, would your friend like to contribute? Anything's welcome. Any more £7.50s? We're rattling our tin.
One of the points you make in your Guardian piece, Justine, is that the unique thing about your content is that it's, as you said earlier, it's nearly all generated by women, and much of the internet is generated by men. So there seems to be a particularly important element to your cause.
And I think this is particularly why we actually were quite interested in these models ingesting our data. It's not just simply because we think this is a way of making a buck. It's actually a way of making their product better. And we are worried about gender bias. We are worried that, of all these reports I've seen of the outputs of these models being, particularly biased to the extremes of, women are nurses and doctors are men type thing, which, we've really got to get beyond that. So I think Mumsnet conversational data is really high quality. I think our users are really smart and can add some value and have very, very different opinions to some of the kind of, standard opinions out there that are male-dominated opinions. So I think it's important. And so I would love to come to some kind of arrangement, whether it's a centre word or whatever, because I think this is an important thing, and AI is going to be a huge part of our lives, and these models and what they suggest are going to become increasingly important. So they should be built on strong foundations, in my view.
Justine, good luck with your legal action, and we must have you back on Media Confidential in a few weeks or months or years' time, however long the legal action takes. Tell us what Mumsnet is for the very few people on the planet who have not yet discovered it.
We got a lot of American readers, Alan. We don't want to piss them off.
So Mumsnet is a platform, as you might guess from the title, for mums to come on and tap into the wisdom of others. They talk about anything from politics to, mother-in-laws, and mostly about their feckless partners and other halves. We've got 9 million users. They're mostly in the UK, but probably about 1 million in the US, actually. And they are highly engaged, and they come really to get the answers for everything and anything, but also for amazing support and empathy. and understanding. And it's dominated by women. So it's 98% of our posters are women. And they spend a lot of time on our platform and produce some amazing content.
Long may it last. Thank you so much, Justine, for coming on our program.
It's an absolute pleasure. Lovely to see you.